In this video, I want to introduce you to a powerful business and life-changing philosophy that you may not be familiar with yet. Even though understanding these simple concepts can mean the difference between building a business that gives you everything you ever wanted and one that completely ruins your life, it's something that still not a lot of people talk about, much less even know about. And not knowing about these things and how they worked, well, it led me to build a number of very big but also incredibly painful businesses early in my career. So I'd like to help you avoid the same mistakes that I made. So here's the deal. If you want to build a truly remarkable and life-changing business, then it pays to know and to understand what kind of result you're optimizing your business for: revenue, profit, or happiness. So let me show you how it's done, starting with probably the most simple one to explain: optimizing your business for revenue. Now, I've talked about this in a lot of previous videos, so I'm going to cover this next part pretty quickly, but the reality is, when it comes to optimizing your business for revenue and really guiding and directing all of your attention and your efforts and your energy towards business growth, well, there's only really 3 ways to grow any business. The first one is by far the most simple, and that is simply to get more customers. This is what marketing is all about. It's about getting your brand and your business and your message more attention, more traffic, more clicks, and ultimately more sales, more conversions, and more customers, clients, or whoever it is that you serve. Now, there is obviously a lot that goes into marketing and a lot that goes into growing a business, including making sure that you have the right business model, making sure that you've identified the right target market, that you've got an adequate and sufficient and valuable message that explains all of the pains and problems that your market has and how your business is uniquely positioned to solve them. Also has to do with showing up in the right place at the right time with the right message in front of that right customer, and of course following up and making sure that you're checking the boxes to really leverage all of the resources and all of the online channels available to you. Now, I appreciate that is a whole lot of stuff and it can feel pretty overwhelming at times, so I'm going to make sure to link up a video at the end of this one to help guide you in the right direction and get you started in that right marketing direction to help you get more customers. But there are more things you can do to optimize your business for revenue. And the second way to increase your revenue is simply to raise your prices, simply to charge more. Because if you're able to earn more per customer or per client or per transaction, well, naturally your business is going to generate more revenue. Of course, one of the key aspects of raising your prices is making sure that you're also raising the value of what it is that you're delivering, or maybe more importantly, raising the perceived value of what you're delivering, because the reality is that value is relatively subjective. As an example, is a $10,000 car expensive or really cheap? Depends on the car, it depends on the market, it depends on the needs of the person buying it, and it also depends on what you're comparing and contrasting this car against. For example, a used Honda Civic priced at $10,000 that's in relatively good condition, well, it seems like a much more budget-friendly and economical purchase when compared and contrasted next to, say, a $200,000 Lamborghini. On the other hand, if this used Honda Civic is, say, 20 years old and in pretty rough shape, and it's also being compared against other cars that are half the price and look a whole lot better, well then it's going to seem expensive. But this isn't a training on automotive sales, so the point to keep in mind here is simply to be aware of the price that you're charging and understand where you can increase your prices and increase the value that goes along with it, which will allow you to also increase your revenue. And the third way to optimize your business for maximum revenue is to work on getting the existing customers that you have to buy more and to buy more often, essentially increasing purchase volume and purchase frequency. Because I'm a marketer and not a mathematician, let's use some pretty easy math here and say that you're selling something for $100. Well, the first way to optimize your business and to increase your revenue would be to get more customers to buy more things for $100. So 10 more customers buying something for $100 gives you an additional $1,000. The second way to increase your revenue would be to raise your prices. So say instead of selling something for $100, you now sell it for $200. And those additional 10 customers that you generated through step 1, well, now they equate to $2,000 instead of just your original $1,000. And step 3, getting those customers to buy more and more often, could involve selling upsells or downsells or cross-sells or other kinds of products or services or offers that are closely related to what you've originally sold. So instead of making a one-time sale of $100 or $200, well, maybe you could make additional sales of $100 or $200 or $500 or maybe even an additional $1,000. So essentially, that is optimizing your business for revenue, looking at those 3 different areas and figuring out which one one you want to start with first, but ultimately incorporating all three into your business growth strategy. But there's a very big important lesson here, which is that growth is going to require some kind of capital, some kind of investment of time and energy and ultimately money, which means that revenue and profit don't necessarily scale linearly. Now I appreciate that sounds kind of confusing, so let me bust out the flip chart and graph exactly what this looks like. All right, so here we are in our stereotypical business graph, looking at a very simple matrix measuring kind of the money sign against the T sign, which stands for time. And when most people think about business growth, they think about revenue. They think about the total amount, the total volume of sales generated. And they typically expect it to look like some kind of line like that. Essentially, we start with a little bit, we add some capital, we add some energy, we provide value to the marketplace, and we're rewarded with bigger sales and more customers and things like that. The thing though that most people fail to take into consideration is, like I mentioned before, that revenue and profit don't scale linearly. Essentially, when you increase your revenue, when you grow your business, well, it's going to chew up additional resources. You're going to have greater expenses. You might need to take on staff. You might need to train your team. You might need to sort of invest in all of these other things that you didn't originally have to do when your business was operating at a lower revenue scale. And this is why there's a bit of a gap. So rather than the revenue and the profit kind of lining up the same, well, the greater that your revenue goes, you can typically expect to see this gap increase. So what you may have started with say a 50% profit margin, or maybe even an 80% profit margin if you're a small solopreneur or someone just operating on your own, well, those slowly start to get eaten into as you grow your business. And this was one of the first lessons that I learned when it came to building businesses. You see, there's this sort of golden standard, or this appealing end goal that a lot of people have when they get into marketing, which is to create and build and grow a 7-figure digital marketing agency, that $1 million agency. But what they fail to tell you is that the standard, the traditional marketing agency operating at around the 7-figure plus level, typically has a 20% profit margin. Now, a 20% profit margin on $1 million a year, that's not a small number. I mean, you're still going to be generating $200,000 in profit, which works out to, I think, around $16,600 and something odd dollars per month. Again, these are pretty decent numbers. The problem is the amount of sacrifice and the amount of time and energy and sort of responsibility that you're going to have to bear on your shoulders in order to generate this revenue and this level of profit. And this is what happens when your sole goal, your sole focus is on generating as much revenue as possible without really paying attention to profit. You end up building a relatively large business, but it's going to chew up a ton of your resources. And at the end of the day, well, there's probably easier ways to make that kind of profit by doing something else. Not always, but sometimes. And this is why the next thing that you want to consider when you're looking to grow and scale your business is to optimize your business for profit. Now, as I walk you through some of the strategies to optimize your business for profit, you may notice that there's a little bit of overlap and a little bit of area where they're going to borrow kind of from optimizing for revenue, and it's also going to apply to optimizing for profit. But don't be dissuaded, because while we can grow a business through those three ways by optimizing for revenue, well, these next tips, these are kind of where you're going to get the most juice for the squeeze. It's kind of a weird analogy. The most bang for your buck. Yeah, that makes more sense. And this is why probably the first thing that you want to do when you're optimizing your business for profit is to look at your pricing. Now, I know this is also one of the main pillars of optimizing for revenue, but the reality is that by simply increasing your prices, well, it's one of the fastest ways to increase your profit margin because it doesn't incur any additional expenses. What I mean by this is, with the other ways of optimizing your business for revenue by getting more customers, well, there's fulfillment costs associated with that. The same thing goes for selling more products or selling more often to those customers. Again, there's fulfillment costs, there's expenses. But none of these exist when you simply increase your prices. That's pretty much just pure profit. Also, most business owners, most entrepreneurs that I've ever worked with, well, they tend to have chosen their prices relatively arbitrarily, possibly just picking a number out of thin air, or maybe looking at their competitors and then just doing whatever they're doing. What this typically means is that that price is not very strategic, and there's probably room to increase it and also to increase the perceived value and the delivered value that the customer's getting in order to justify justify the price. Long story short, raise your price, provide more value, make sure that you're communicating all of the value that the customer is getting, and it's a very easy and very efficient way to increase your business's profit. The next way to optimize your business for profit is to create or redesign the systems that you already have in place. Every business, regardless of what market or industry or niche you're in, has repeatable tasks, has repeatable things that you do on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. Many of these are going to be inefficient and can either be strategically redesigned or cut altogether. The reality is that there are things that you're doing in your business right now that are wasting your time, they're wasting your money, they're wasting your energy, and they could probably be removed or optimized or automated. And when you do that, you increase your profit by eliminating all of those unnecessary tasks and unnecessary costs. And while on the topic of reducing unnecessary tasks and streamlining them, well, this is going to be the next place you want to focus in order to optimize your business for profitability. And that is to next take a step and look at all of the things that you're doing and all the things that you're offering to your customers that your customers just don't really care about. See, here's the deal. If you've been in business for any length of time, then there's probably a chance that you've got a little bit of creep in the services or products that you're offering, essentially going above and beyond, giving them a little bit extra of this or a little bit extra of that. And sometimes that is a very, very good thing because your customers, your clients, they genuinely care and they genuinely appreciate all of the effort that you're putting in. However, sometimes they don't really care about all of the extra bells and whistles that you're providing. They're really just there for the core thing. All of this extra time and energy and money that you're putting into it are really just going to waste. So make sure you understand what your customers and clients actually value and then do that and do it even better. Find all the things they don't really care about and you can probably safely remove them. All right, the next way to optimize your business for profitability and increase those profits is to focus on customer retention and beware of attrition. Attrition is essentially just losing customers. In the software world, we'd call it churn. We could also refer to it as turnover, but essentially it's any time that a customer comes in and then they leave and they don't buy again. You see, the problem with attrition, with churn, with turnover is that to generate a new customer, it's going to take a significant amount of time and money and energy in marketing and content and sales conversations and whatever it is that you do. So once you've paid that money out to the market, to the world, and essentially acquired that customer, well, those costs are now pretty much accounted for. And now anything that you do beyond that is mostly profit. Again, seeing as I'm a marketer and not a mathematician, let's keep the math nice and simple here. Let's say that you spend around $100 across your marketing to acquire one single customer. Well, if that customer is worth $100 a month, you essentially break even after that first month. And then on months 2 and months 3 and months 4, you're generating an additional $100 each and every month after that. This is why you want to keep your customer for as long as possible, thereby increasing their LTV or lifetime value. On the other hand, if you spend $100 to acquire a customer, known as a CAC or customer acquisition cost, and then you lose them after a day or a week or even a month, well, you're going to break even at best and possibly even lose money. When this happens, you're no longer able to spend more money on marketing because everything you do just loses you money. And this means you're unable to grow and unable to increase revenue, much less profit. Basically, it's the ultimate lose-lose. So you want to focus on retaining your customers for as long as it makes sense by giving them the absolute best service and the most value that you possibly can in alignment with your offer. Basically, just do what you're going to do, deliver on what you promise, and you're probably already going to be ahead of most of the competitors out there who are struggling to even do just that. All right, the next way to optimize your business for profit and profitability is to focus on the 80-20 rule or Pareto's principle, and you're going to want to do this in 3 different areas. Now, the 80-20 rule, or Pareto's principle, is essentially the fact that 80% of your results are going to come from just 20% of your effort. So you want to focus on where those 20% of your time and your money and your energy are best spent to get you the best return for your buck. So the first thing that you want to 80-20 is all of your marketing, essentially cutting all of the losers and scaling up the winners. Finding out what marketing channels, what marketing strategies, what marketing initiatives are delivering the results, because the reality is that most probably aren't. And one of the fastest ways to increase your profits and increase your return on investment is to simply get rid of all the things that are losing you money. So spend a little bit of time digging deep into your overall marketing strategy, making sure that you're doing the right things in the right place for the right people, and then then being relatively ruthless with all the things that just aren't working, not being afraid to pause them or cut them all together. The next thing that you want to 80/20 is your customers and clients, essentially finding those top 20% of customers that are delivering 80% of your profits and of your revenue. Now, the reality is it could be that your top 10% of customers are delivering 90% of your revenues, or the top 30% of your customers are delivering 70% of your revenues. So the numbers may swish and swash a little bit, but the point remains the same. Swish and swash. The reality is that any business is going to have an upper tier level of customers and of clients. The people that love you, love what you do, want to tell everyone about just how great you are. They never haggle over the price. They always pay on time. They buy more often, and they're really just a pleasure to deal with. Well, your job as the business owner, as the entrepreneur, as the marketer is to do everything in your power to keep these people and to find more people just like them. And the third area that you want to 80/20, especially if you want to retain your business's profitability and increase it, is your team and your employees. Just like how all businesses have those top tier customers and top tier clients, well, all businesses, especially if you have a team or staff or contractors or anything like that, are going to have a few people that are just significantly better at what they do. Well, your job is much like the other things. It's to find those people and to give them even more work, to give them even more opportunities, and to obviously accommodate and pay them more for all of the extra effort that they're doing, because they're worth significantly more than all the people who are kind of just skating by. Also, I hate firing people, like legitimately hate it. But the health and the longevity of your business sometimes require that you kind of get rid of some of the slack and some people that just aren't holding up their own weight. And on that note, well, let me move on to the next way to optimize your business for profitability, and that is to constantly be looking for ways to lower your expenses. Now, this one comes with a bit of a warning, because when it comes to growing a business, I am a huge proponent of not getting rid of all of the things that enabled you to be successful in the first place. For example, if you're investing in content marketing or video marketing or email marketing or any other channel that requires a significant investment of time or money, and it's been relatively successful up until this point, please, by all means, don't stop. On the other hand, if you've been using a social media platform for 6 months to a year and it's just not delivering any results, or you have some software that's been sitting on your books, constantly billing monthly charges that you haven't looked at in a year, or anything else that isn't contributing to your business growth or to your customer satisfaction, well, it's okay to take a look at these things from time to time and cut some of the fluff that just isn't adding to your overall business success. So hopefully by this point you've come to the conclusion and the awareness that when it comes to building and growing profitable and massive businesses, my preference, my bias is always going to be to optimize profit over just straight up revenue. Now, some of this is just a personal bias of growing big revenue companies that had very little profit at the end of the day, that I realized I was just working way too hard for way too little. But another side also has to do with looking at what others have done, especially in the field of marketing, where there's a lot of talk and a lot of hype around these massive launches producing millions and millions of dollars. But what people fail to recognize or fail to realize is that they're often not as good as they seem. For example, if you do a $1 million launch, but you spend $950,000 in Facebook ads, and therefore you only generate $50,000, it's not really a $1 million launch. You only made 50 grand. Of course, all of that aside, there is still one other area that I believe is incredibly important to optimize for, especially in the long term, and that is optimizing your business for happiness. Now, I appreciate sitting here talking to you right now about optimizing your business for happiness feels a little bit awkward and weird and woo-woo and a little bit too fluffy. But I'd be doing you a huge disservice if I didn't talk to you about this, because the reality is that you're not going to be able to be successful long-term if you simply hate what you're doing. I've been in the fortunate position of building businesses that paid very well, but also in the unfortunate position of pretty much hating every single day of my life. Unsurprisingly, it's not a good trade-off. But fast forward to today, and my priorities are now as follows: optimizing my business for overall happiness, and then profit, and revenue pretty much last. So with all that said, let me share with you my top tips to optimize your business for happiness. And this is going to be a little bit personal development-y, but I think you'll find it really valuable. The first way to do this is to focus on your own biology. Now, the reality is there are significantly better people to talk to you about this than me, so I'm just going to cover the real high-level things that you probably already know, but always helps to be reminded of. Basically, you gotta get enough sleep. This is kind of the miracle drug, so aim for 7 to 9 hours and try to get to bed as early as possible. Next, nutrition. Matters, eat healthy, yada yada, you know the drill. Lastly, exercise. You need to move, you need to get the blood flowing. It's good for your body, it's good for your brain, it's good for your creativity, and it makes you more resilient and adaptable to stress. Next, let's talk about environment. Your environment is where you live and, more importantly, where you work. First off, if you want to be happier, you need to upgrade your content sources. Watching the news first thing in the morning or last thing at night or doom scrolling through your phone, it's never going to put you in the best possible state. The reality is garbage in does equal garbage out, so focus on consuming the highest quality content possible and making sure that it's in alignment with you and your vision and your goals and everywhere you're trying to go. Next, you really have to do your best to try to minimize distractions. So turn your phone off or at least put it away, shut down any notifications on your computer, and really set aside some time to get good solid work done. Also, you want to try to get into some kind of a routine where you're able to make habits automatic. There's an expression that says you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits, and I found this absolutely true. So on that note, next let's talk about routines. Your routine is really just your structure that is going to be completely personal and completely customized to you and to what works for you best. Some people wake up early, some people wake up late, some people work better at this time or that time. Whatever it is, you need to find what works best for you, and then you need to stick with it long enough to actually test it out. Next, you want to spend a little bit of time and sit down and map out your ideal ordinary day. Your ideal ordinary day is everything that you would want to do in an ordinary day. That's right, we're not talking about vacation or going on wild trips or never working again. We're talking about being relatively realistic, but also ambitious with what that perfect day looks like. For me, it involves waking up relatively early, having a good breakfast, getting in a workout, doing some reading, creating some content, working with clients, spending time with my family, playing some music, all of those things. The beauty of this exercise as well is that you'll probably find that your ideal ordinary day is relatively achievable, especially if you work for yourself or have your own business. And even if you don't, there's probably still a few hours that you can move around to sort of include the things that matter most to you. Another thing you can do to really set yourself up for success and maximize and optimize your happiness is to do something Brian Tracy calls eating that frog. Actually, it was Mark Twain that said it first, but Brian Tracy has a great book on that exact topic. No, this isn't about how to cook frogs, but rather the fact that if you've got something big and something important and something possibly painful or ugly to do, you're best to do it first things first. Just get it out of the way, and then you have the rest of your day to feel proud of the thing that you've just got done. And you're not going to be dreading it, kind of counting down the hours until you finally got to get this thing done. I've never eaten a frog, but it sounds nasty. Next, you need to make sure that you've got adequate mental bandwidth to do what's important and not just what's urgent. Essentially, you need to make sure that you have time to work on things that are actually going to grow you and grow your business long term, and not just respond to the firefight of emails and messages that are coming your way pretty much nonstop every single day. And if you have important decisions to make sure to make them early on in the day before something known as decision fatigue has set in, where essentially you get to the end of the day and you're just exhausted and don't care anymore. Okay, next, let's talk about people. I'm sure you've heard the expression that you become the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and this has proven itself to be relatively true, but it gets even scarier. You see, not only do you become the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, but you also become the average of the 5 people that they spend the most time with. Studies have shown that the influences of other people, well, they really do creep that far. So picking high quality people to invest your time and energy with is a valuable thing to do. Next, always make sure to have some kind of a model or a mentor or some kind of aspirational guidepost in your life, someone that you look up to, someone that you want to be like, someone that you want to learn from, so that you can use them as kind of a beacon or kind of a North Star guiding you in the right direction. More on that in a minute. Also, if you want to optimize your business for happiness, it's helpful to have 3 different categories of people in your life. Someone that's ahead of you that you can learn from, someone that's at your same level so you can share all of the pains and problems and struggles you're going through, as well as someone who's not yet at your level, someone who's below you, at least in the business sense, so that you can reach down and lift them up and teach them some of the things you've learned along the way. Okay, next, let's talk about emotions. The reality is that emotions are powerful things, but they're just that, just things. They're not good, they're not bad, they just kind of happen sometimes. This is why an important concept that I've learned over the years is something I learned from Trevor Moawad in his book, It Takes What It Takes, which is all about neutral thinking. Neutral thinking is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's trying to come back to a baseline of neutrality in regards to your emotions. I appreciate that can be easier said than done, but fortunately there are some other tools that you can use to arm yourself, some of which I've found more successful than others. The first of which is probably my most hated form of all personal development, and yet also one of the ones I found kind of effective, and that's affirmations. Not just any kind of affirmations, you know, the kind where you stare at yourself in the mirror and say nice things to yourself. It makes your family freak out and think you're kind of lost the plot. Nope, there's a great book by John Acuff that's called Soundtracks, and it's essentially just creating a list of more believable and more positive affirmations that you can say about yourself, and it's really, it's actually more powerful than I thought it would be. And then of course you have the other contenders like gratitude practice, like journaling and meditation. I find meditation challenging, but still effective, so I do it. I find gratitude less challenging and incredibly enjoyable, so I definitely do that. And I find journaling the one habit that I've quit and restarted more times than I can remember. But it's also one of the ones that really helps to sort of clear out all of the mental clutter first thing in the morning. So even if you just write down a simple page of all of the thoughts and random ideas floating around in your head, well, it can be quite beneficial. Also, as a bit of an Easter egg here in this episode, if you've never heard of the book The Winner's Bible by Dr. Carrie Spackman, I highly recommend you check that out. It's a powerful book that really involves putting together your own winner's Bible, which is going to involve a series of goals and affirmations and values and rules that you need to live by. And once you create it and you review it time and time again, well, it can start to retrain and reprogram your subconscious and your conscious mind, make winning and make happiness that much more achievable. Also, my final point on emotions is that happiness is typically found in service to others. So if you're really struggling with this one, just look for someone around you that you can help. Next, let's talk about overall career and business growth. It's important to understand that everything in life is going to have trade-offs, and the better that you understand yourself and what's important to you, the better you're going to be able to navigate all of the choices ahead of you. Reality is that saying yes to something means saying no to pretty much anything else that was going to take place or have the potential to take place in that time. Be selective. Also, one of the best ways to increase your happiness is to feel proud about what you've done and about who you're becoming. So always try to be in that top 1%, or at the very least top 10% of your field and of your industry. Might sound scary at first, but the reality is that the top is a relatively quiet place because most people just don't try that hard and they quit along the way. I think the expression goes, the extra mile is never crowded. Go the extra mile, unless you like crowds. Next, let's talk about overall mission, not just for you, but also for your business. It's important to identify your values and your purpose and the meaning and the why behind what you're doing with your business in the first place. After all, it's no secret that there's going to be challenges that are going to come your way. There's going to be obstacles that you need to overcome. And as happy and as profit-driven and as successful as you are, there's still going to be hard times. This is why it's important to know why you're doing what you're doing. What are the sacrifices worth? What are the rewards that you're working towards? Even if you don't have a crystal clear idea of exactly where you want your business to be in 10 years, or 5 years, or 3 years, or even in 1 year, it's totally cool. A lot of these things are going to present themselves over time, and the path can only really be revealed after you've taken those first few steps. But you still need to have some kind of a guiding direction, and what I use is something I call a North Star. The North Star is really just that general area, that general direction that you want to move towards, to aim to be the best in your field, to aim to reach this many people, or whatever else you deem is important to you. Also, as a throwback to my business ethics course way back in my college days, there was something that I learned, which is that work has value in and of itself. Essentially, the time is going to pass anyway, so you might as well do some work. And the work is going to deliver not just value to the market and therefore reward you with revenue and with profit, but it's also going to reward you with happiness, with fulfillment, with contentment. And next, a few life lessons from your friendly neighborhood marketer. Here's the deal. Aside from a few basic laws that are pretty much universally accepted, like be a good person, don't hurt anybody else, well, aside from that, there pretty much aren't any other rules that you need to live by. You do you. Something I remind myself on a pretty much daily basis is from Bronnie Ware, who was a nurse who worked in palliative care, helping people in their final days, and essentially one of her famous articles on the top 5 regrets of the dying. Well, one of those top regrets was, I'd wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself and not what others had expected of me. And as a recovering people pleaser, this one hits me right there. Actually, it kind of hits me like right here, and it just freaks me out. The thought of getting to the end of my life and looking back at the life I've lived and wondering and wishing and hoping that I'd done what I actually wanted to do, it's terrifying. So be smart. Work hard, but also follow your dreams, and don't be afraid to take massive imperfect action. Also, one of my favorite Stoic quotes that I learned from Ryan Holiday is Memento Mori. It's gonna sound pretty morbid, but essentially it's remember that you will die. You could leave life right now. so could anyone that you care and love. Like I said, a morbid but incredibly important reminder, because when you think about being afraid to post that content or to grow that business or to launch that new marketing campaign or whatever it is, well, you start to realize that it's just not that important in the grand scheme of things. What's important is friends and family and relationships and doing your best and trying to serve the community and trying to fulfill your potential. This is why I truly believe that your focus to grow your business shouldn't just be on optimizing for revenue or optimizing for profit or optimizing for happiness, but rather to try to optimize for all three. And in my humble, but I believe accurate opinion, the best way to optimize your business for all three of these is to really focus on mastering your marketing. And this is why the next thing you're going to want to do is check out the video that I've got linked up right here on marketing strategies. So make sure to check it out now, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, the next thing that'll really help you become a better digital marketer is to understand the differences between strategy and tactics and when to use them. Strategy is all the big picture stuff, and this is really where you